If you open up the starting file, you'll see a column of dates, a closing price for Google stock, given those dates, and two columns which are a moving average of the stock, so basically a forecast of the stock. Now the idea is that we want to create a line chart, so all we need to do is go ahead and start by clicking on a cell with nothing in it, because we want to start with a blank canvas. Let's go ahead and go to line chart. Perhaps eventually we'll make this bigger, or want this bigger, so let's go ahead and do that. We want to go ahead and graph the date as X and the closing price as Y. So let's click on the canvas, go to select data. We'll go ahead and hit the add series. The series name will be referenced to the close. We can hit this option, but we got to make sure that we delete this one that was there by default, and then select our data for Y. Now this is a lengthy data set, and you'll actually see there are the forecasted values for the moving average estimates. So it goes down to row 2209. I'm going to click this button to end and go ahead and click OK. In terms of the horizontal category, we want to reference the dates. So I'm going to modify the horizontal and select all the way down from the bottom, or you can start at top, it doesn't matter, and select all of these values. Okay, all the way to row 2 in column A. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit this button to get to the menu where we can hit close. At this point, we've created a line chart. What you actually might want to do is add those forecasting estimates from column C and column D. A moving average is simply an estimate where, for this case of moving average 52, we let 52 days of stock prices pass before we create our first estimate here. So this average B2 to B53 is taking an average of those last 52 sample points. So this is useful for seeing trends, if stock prices have upward momentum or a downward momentum. There's a couple different ways we can add those series to the chart. The easiest way is if you click your chart, usually around the border area, so you're not inside this chart area. But if you go ahead and click that, you can actually grab a hold of this blue range and extend it over to your various locations. You might not necessarily want these blank spaces in the graph, but we'll deal with that in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and undo this and go through the exercise of adding this manually again. So if we right click on the chart, we can go to select data. We can add another series. Series name will be in this column heading. We'll remove the default one, and we'll actually go ahead and manually select the data that we actually want to appear in the chart versus displaying those blanks. So it takes some time if you're manually maneuvering the mouse and trying to select this range. There are some techniques that will make this selection easier for the keyboard, but I want to keep this video pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and add the next series, which is the moving average of 200. Do the same thing. We'll go down to the point where we see that the first 200 sample points have passed, and we're taking an average of those 200 sample points. So let's go ahead and select these. Okay, let's go ahead and hit OK. And we actually have to modify the horizontal categories as well so it knows how to align the series on the chart. So let's go ahead and modify the 52. We'll start at the very bottom and go almost to the top of the spreadsheet. to row 54. We'll modify the MA of 200 in a similar fashion, the horizontal part. And it looks like that was already selected. So it looks like we're good. Let's hit OK. And actually the horizontal component of the green MA looks like it's off. So we should have this green bar extending all the way to the ending point. So let's go ahead and right click and modify that. I thought it was a little odd that Excel put something there. It ended up being the wrong data. So let's go ahead and select down here where the 200 moving average starts all the way to the ending point. Okay, let's go ahead and hit OK. And OK again. Scroll up to see our chart. We might want to do some formatting. One of the first things you might want to do is select a default layout. I like the very first one here, but by all means you can explore with other ones. Depending on the size of your data set, you might have limitations. So maybe you can't use the ones that display the numbers like you're seeing here. What you might want to do is just click on a very simple one here. That at least gives us the chart title and the y-axis. I'm going to actually rename the chart title to Google Stock Price with Moving Average Forecast. Okay, so go ahead and modify that. Modify the y-axis. We'll make this say closing price in terms of dollars. And actually what you might want to do, instead of typing out the text, you might actually just want to reference it to a cell. So what you can actually do is hit on it, hit on the label, and hit equals, and just reference this value here. Thus, if you update this, the chart gets the text that's referenced, which is pretty nice. So I'm going to select this button and auto fit my column data. You might want to do further formatting. I like to take up as much space as I can with the graph, so normally what I do is move this label. Sometimes it's tricky to select, but what I'm referring to is this legend. We can then expand the size of the graph, which I think is a little bit better. We can fill this legend so you don't see the horizontal grid lines by simply going to Format, Shape Fill is white, Shape Outline black. It's giving us a warning because we have a lot of data that it might take a long time to display. Not necessarily sure why it would, because all we're doing is modifying the border, but nevertheless, we might want to put in different grids. Of course, we can mess with the grid lines and the vertical grids, and maybe we want major. Perhaps we want this legend to be below our graph, so we can simply move this up and move this down. But one thing you can do is actually extend this, and it'll actually put your data in one single row. So you can modify that a little bit, and I think that looks pretty good. If you did want to add another axis label, you could add the horizontal one below, and we could call this day, or date perhaps would be more appropriate. And then of course, if you wanted to modify the colors or anything like that, there are some formatting options that are pre-generated, black to white all the way to orange. You can even give your lines more of a 3D effect, which you can't really see here because these are actually lines. They don't have the markers But if you want just something very simple, we can go back to the default. You might want to put a border on this, so I'm going to go change that and put the fill back on. But that's essentially it. So this is a quick activity of just how to generate a line chart using stock data. One of the benefits of using a line is that it's more common to use a line chart if you're dealing with time series values or a time series data set like we are dealing with here. So we have the Google closing price of their stock and the 52 and 200 day moving average.